All right, getting ready for your family planning counselor interview. That's a big deal. We're going to help you get ready to really shine today. We got all kinds of great info to help you prepare. A whole career guide, an interview guide. We'll even talk about how this cool AI tool called RoleCatcher can, well, help you make a great impression.
It really is more than just like, getting through the interview,
Yeah.
right? It's about showing them you're really passionate.
Oh, absolutely. You want them to see, this work is so important. So let's just jump right in. First question. Can you tell us about your experience working in family planning? Pretty basic, right?
It does seem pretty straightforward, but there are ways to make your answer, well, stand out from everyone else's.
I was thinking the same thing. What do you think is the best way to answer this one?
Hmm. I think it's important to not just give a list of all your old jobs. Instead, you should talk about times when you've shown you have the skills they're looking for. Like, even if you've never been a family planning counselor before, have you ever volunteered at a clinic?
Oh, that's a great example.
Or, like, led a group where you had to teach people about sexual health, anything like that. You want to show them you can already do this, even if it wasn't your official job title.
That's so smart. And that reminds me, making sure your answers are just right for the job. RoleCatcher can actually help you do that.
Really?
Yeah. It uses AI to look at your answers and tell you how they match up to what family planning counselors really need to know. Kind of amazing.
Wow, that's like having a personal coach. That's so cool. Okay, what's next?
Next question is, how do you approach counseling clients who have different cultural or religious beliefs than you do? Oof, that's a tough one.
Yeah, this one is all about showing you can be supportive without judging anyone and helping them make their own choices, even if you wouldn't make the same ones.
So they're really trying to see how you handle those sensitive conversations.
Exactly. Have you ever had to do that before? Maybe volunteering somewhere, or even just in your own life.
Hmm. I think everyone's had to navigate a tough conversation at some point, right? But how do you explain that in an interview?
You just want to be honest about how you made sure you were really listening to the other person and understanding where they were coming from, even if you didn't agree.
And probably have a real story ready to go, while respecting everyone's privacy, of course.
Oh, for sure. You don't want to share anything too personal. And you know what? RoleCatcher can help you practice this too.
Wait, really? How?
You can record yourself answering these questions, and the AI will actually tell you how you sound. Like, are you coming across as understanding and trustworthy? Really helpful.
That's incredible. I need to check that out.
Mm.
Okay, moving on. How do you stay up to date on the latest research and developments in family planning?
Ah, yes. This field is always changing. They want to know that you're like a lifelong learner.
Always reading and learning new things.
Exactly. So you want to mention those professional journals, the ones we talked about before, or conferences you've been to. Even online courses are good.
It's showing them that you're proactive. You're not waiting for someone to tell you what's new. You're out there finding it yourself. The career guide actually talks about this too, the importance of always keeping your knowledge up to date.
Yep. Professional development, they call it.
Right. And it mentions some really helpful certifications, like CFPC, CPC.
And CCMHC.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are all signs that you're really serious about this work. And you know what? RoleCatcher has this cool tool called Career Compass.
What does that do?
It can actually help you figure out which certifications would be best for you, based on your goals and everything.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So you don't have to figure it all out alone.
Exactly. All right, question number 4. How do you assess a client's needs and preferences when recommending a contraceptive method? This one seems pretty complex.
It is. You have to show them that you know all about the different methods out there, but it's more than that, right? You need to be able to figure out what's best for each person.
It's almost like being a detective. You have to gather all the clues to figure out what really works for them.
Exactly. You need to know about their medical history, their lifestyle, even their personal values. It's not one size fits all, right?
And they're probably going to ask you those tricky follow-up questions, like, what if someone wants a method that you don't think is right for them? How do you handle that?
That's where you really have to walk that fine line. You have to be able to explain your thinking, but you also have to respect their right to make their own choice.
And of course, do it all without making them feel judged or anything.
Right, you want them to feel heard and understood and like you're on their side. This is another one where practicing with RoleCatcher could be really helpful.
Oh yeah, you think so?
Yeah, remember how it analyzes your answers? Well, it can tell you if you're coming across as empathetic. That's so important in this job.
You're right. Okay, let's keep going. Next question. How do you address a client's concerns about potential side effects or risks of a contraceptive method?
Oh man, this one feels tricky. You have to be honest, but also reassuring. Right. It's a balancing act for sure. You want to start by acknowledging their concerns. Make sure they feel heard and validated. Their worries are real.
And then what? How do you give them the facts without freaking them out?
Then you provide them with accurate information, backed up by research, of course. And this is where your experience comes in. Have you had to have tough conversations before where you had to, deliver difficult news in a sensitive way?
You mean like telling someone something they don't want to hear?
Exactly. Think about how you did that. How did you make sure they understood what you were saying, but also that you were there to support them?
That makes sense. You're not just throwing facts at them, you're building a relationship.
Exactly. And you know what? RoleCatcher can actually help you analyze how well you're doing with that.
Really?
That AI feedback thing, remember, it can tell you if you're building trust in your communication. Pretty amazing, right?
That is amazing. I love that there are tools out there to help with these tricky parts of the job search. Okay, let's tackle this next one. How do you approach counseling clients who are hesitant or resistant to using contraception? I feel like this one could go in so many different directions.
This one is all about listening. Really listening. Because there are so many reasons why someone might be hesitant, right?
Yeah, like what?
It could be their cultural beliefs. Or maybe they've had a bad experience in the past. There could be all sorts of reasons, and you have to understand where they're coming from before you can even start to talk about options.
You have to meet them where they are, right?
Exactly, and you can't just try to force your viewpoint on them. That's never going to work.
Right, that makes total sense. The career guide talks about the different counseling techniques that can be helpful in situations like this.
Yeah, there's motivational interviewing.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
It's about having a whole toolbox full of skills so you can pick the right one for each person.
Exactly. One size doesn't fit all, remember?
Okay, moving right along. How do you incorporate client-centered counseling into your practice? What does that even mean?
Well, it means you're not the one making the decisions. The client is.
Oh, okay, so it's about giving them the information and support they need to make their own choices.
Exactly. Think about times when you've helped someone figure something out without telling them what to do. Like maybe you helped a friend with a problem or mentored someone at work.
So it's about asking the right questions, listening carefully, and then presenting options in a way that lets them decide what's best for them.
You got it. And be ready for them to ask for an example of how you've done this in the past.
Oh yeah, they love those tell me about a time questions.
Exactly.
All right, next question. Can you describe a time when you had to address a difficult or sensitive issue with a client? Here we go with the stories again.
Okay, so with this one, you want to pick a situation that shows you can handle tough stuff. You stayed calm, you solved the problem, and you did the right thing, ethically speaking.
It's about showing them you can handle the pressure and that you learn from your mistakes.
Yep. What challenges did you face? How did you overcome them? What did you learn?
Oh, and remember, no identifying information.
Right. You have to keep things confidential.
Moving on, this was really important. How do you approach working with clients who have experienced trauma or abuse?
This is where trauma-informed care comes in.
Okay, what's that?
Basically, it means understanding how trauma can affect people and creating a space where they feel safe. You have to be really careful with your language, and you have to let them control the pace of the conversation.
So you're recognizing that they might have baggage from the past that could affect how they feel about family planning.
Exactly. And be ready to talk about specific ways you build trust with people who have experienced trauma.
So they know you're not just reading from a textbook. You've actually thought about this.
Right. All right, what else do we have?
Okay, last one for today. How do you ensure that clients have access to the resources and support they need? This is about going above and beyond, isn't it?
It is. You're not just a counselor, you're a connector. You need to know about all the resources out there, like local organizations, hotlines.
Support groups, all that stuff.
Yeah. And the career guide talks about advocating for your clients too, like making sure everyone has access to the care they need, no matter what.
That's where that social justice piece comes in, right?
Yeah.
And this reminds me, RoleCatcher's CV resume builder can actually help you highlight this part of your experience.
Really? How so?
Well, it uses AI to showcase the skills that employers are really looking for. So if they want someone who's passionate about helping others get the resources they need.
You'll make sure your resume shows that.
Exactly.
That's so helpful.
Okay, we've covered a lot today.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about the interview, but let's look ahead. What's next after you land that job? The career guide actually lays out different stages, like what you can expect as you move up in your career.
Oh, that's really helpful. It can be hard to picture what your future might look like in a new field.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. What does an entry-level family planning counselor actually do?
Well, in those first couple of years, you're really building a strong foundation, learning the ropes. You'll be working directly with clients a lot, getting lots of practice with those counseling
And
skills.
probably learning a ton from the more experienced folks.
Oh, absolutely. You'll have mentors and colleagues who can show you the ins and outs of the job. It's a great time to ask questions and soak up as much knowledge as you can.
The guide actually has these little example profiles for each stage, which I thought were really interesting. For entry level, it mentions things like, teaching people about the different types of birth control and helping them figure out what to do if they're facing an unplanned pregnancy.
Right, very foundational stuff. You're building trust, making sure people have accurate information, and helping them make those early decisions.
Then, as you move into like a junior role, it sounds like you start taking on more responsibility.
Yeah, you're not just learning anymore, you're starting to lead.
Oh, I see. The example profile mentions things like doing more in-depth assessments with clients and even helping to train new counselors.
Exactly. You're kind of becoming a mentor yourself, which is exciting. You really start to see how you can impact others who are just starting out.
And then the mid-level stage sounds like where things get really interesting. The example profile talks about developing whole educational programs and leading group counseling sessions, even doing research.
Right now, you're becoming a real expert. You're contributing to the field in a bigger way. This is often when people start to specialize, like focusing on a specific area of family planning that they're really passionate about.
That makes sense. You've got that solid base, and now you're branching out.
Exactly.
And then, of course, there's the top level, senior family planning counselor, leading a team, creating training programs, even advocating for changes in policies. Wow.
That's where you have the power to not only help individual clients, but to actually make a difference in the whole system, It's a pretty incredible level of leadership.
Speaking of leadership, the career guide mentions social perceptiveness as a really important skill for this job. I was kind of surprised by that. Isn't it just about being a good listener?
Well, it's more than that. It's like being able to see what's going on beneath the surface.
Oh, okay. So it's about picking up on those unspoken things.
Right, like body language, their tone of voice. Maybe they're saying they're fine, but you can tell they're actually really worried about something.
Wow. So you have to be really tuned in to those subtle cues.
Exactly. And it's especially important in this field because you're talking about stuff that can be very personal and emotional, right?
Makes sense. You want to be able to create that safe space for people to open up. Oh, and there was another skill they mentioned that I thought was kind of unusual. Philosophy and theology knowledge. Why would that be important for a family planning counselor?
Well, when you think about it, you're working with people from all different backgrounds, right? Different cultures, different religions.
Different beliefs about, well, pretty much everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to understand where they're coming from, their values, their ethical beliefs.
So you can respect their choices, even if you don't personally agree.
Right. And having some knowledge of philosophy and theology can really help you with that.
That's fascinating. It's not something you'd usually think of in a healthcare job, but it makes so much sense in this context. I keep thinking about RoleCatcher and how it can help people who are preparing for this interview.
Oh, yeah. We haven't even talked about all the ways it can be helpful.
I know. We've mentioned the interview practice and the resume builder, but what if you're feeling stuck? Like you just don't know how to answer a question, or you're not sure if you're coming across the right way.
RoleCatcher can help with that, too.
Really?
Well, remember how it uses AI to give you feedback on your answers? It can tell you things like, are you showing enough empathy? Are you clearly explaining the information? Stuff like that.
It's like having a virtual mentor right there with you.
Exactly. And don't forget about their huge collection of practice interview questions. They're organized by career and skills, so you can find exactly what you need to practice.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like having a whole team of experts in your pocket.
Yeah.
And the CV resume builder is pretty awesome, too.
It really is. It uses AI to make sure your resume highlights the skills and experience that employers are looking for in a family planning counselor. So you stand out from the crowd.
So whether you're just starting your job search or you're looking for a new challenge, RoleCatcher can be such a valuable resource.
It's all about empowering you to succeed.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about so much today, the interview, the career path, the skills you need to succeed, but the career guide actually talks about something that I think is really important, self-care.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
Because this is a field that can be emotionally tough.
It can be. You're dealing with really personal stuff, and it can be easy to get burnt out if you're not taking care of yourself.
The guide actually uses that phrase, burnt out. That's scary. So how can our listeners protect themselves? They're obviously so passionate about this work, we don't want them to lose that spark.
You're right. It's like we were saying before, you can't pour from an empty cup. So you have to make sure you're filling yourself up. What are some things you enjoy doing outside of work? Things that make you feel good?
Yeah, it's got to be something that really helps you disconnect and recharge. What kinds of things do you do for self-care?
For me, honestly, getting outside is huge. Even a short walk in the park can totally shift my mood, you know? Or reading. Getting lost in a good book is like my ultimate escape.
Those are great ideas. And don't forget about spending time with people you love.
Oh, absolutely. Connecting with friends and family, that's so important for staying grounded. And setting boundaries, knowing when to turn off your phone, step away from work, and just be present in your life.
Boundaries, that's a good one. It's so easy to get sucked into work mode 24/7 these days.
It is, and that's a recipe for burnout, for sure. The guide also talks about seeking supervision or mentorship, especially when you're dealing with tough cases.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like having someone you trust to talk to process those difficult experiences.
Exactly. Having a mentor who's been there, who can offer guidance and support, that can make a world of difference. It helps you feel less alone, like
Yeah.
you're not carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders.
It really does take a village, doesn't it? Not just for raising kids, but for doing this kind of work too.
It really does. We all need support sometimes. Even the most experienced and passionate family planning counselors, we're all human.
That's so true. Well, I feel like we've really covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've talked about what a family planning counselor does, how to prepare for those interview questions, what your career might look like down the road.
And how tools like RoleCatcher can help you along the way, from practicing your answers to showcasing your skills on your resume.
It's amazing how much technology can help with these things.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it comes down to you, your passion, your commitment to this work. That's what's really going to shine through.
I totally agree. Remember why you're doing this. What drew you to this field in the first place? Hold on to that feeling, that desire to make a difference in people's lives.
Because you're going to be doing amazing things. You're going to be empowering people to make choices about their bodies, their families, their futures.
It's pretty incredible work when you think about it.
It really is. So go out there, rock that interview, and know that we're cheering you on every step of the way. Use those tools, trust your instincts, and let your passion guide you.
And don't forget to have fun. This is a challenging field, but it's also incredibly rewarding. You're going to meet amazing people, learn so much, and make a real difference in the world.
Until next time, keep diving deep.